So we're talking about leaders. I'm also going to talk about a single needle throat plate as opposed to your regular throat plate. So you can see the difference because not everybody understands what they are and what function they serve. All right. So let's do that first. Get that out of the way because I need to get a throat. You can see I have my throat open on my machine. Again, tonight I am sewing on the FOF Performance Icon. So this is the regular throat plate. It has a very wide opening right here because my needle needs to be able to travel this distance when I'm doing zigzag or decorative stitching, all kinds of things like that. So this throat plate is what is used probably 9 times out of 10. However, in piecing, to help me be super accurate, this is my single needle hole right here. You can see, I don't want to get it where you can see it. There we go. You have just that center hole. It's kind of blocked off on the sides here. So my needle can only go in just the center part. I have the ability to move it like 1 click to the left or 1 click to the right. So I can get my scant 1/4 inch seam. On the FOF, it's 1 click to the right of needle center position. To put this on, this is so simple. I love this. There's no screws. I just slide it in and snap it down. And I'm just like, yeah, usually it is. And it's like, let me put my glasses on. That will help, right? Always visually impaired people should remember to put their glasses on. Just slide it in and snap it down. Come on. There we go. It's tight, it's a new machine, and I still am struggling with my hand here. So that is one of the problems. I'm going to make sure my IDT is engaged. That's this piece right here. This is why we FOF lovers like our FOF. I brought that down and put it in place. It's going to sit right between my presser foot on the back there. And the purpose of that IDT, Integrated Dual Technology, also known as the built-in walking foot, is it will feed my top fabric through at the same rate that my bottom fabric through is pulled through with the feed dogs. Okay, so that's why we like our FOFs, is for that there. All right, machine's ready to go. We need to put our leaders on. Now, I brought 2 leaders that I have been using Actually, I just started these leaders yesterday with this project that I will demonstrate on today. This is a store project, so you're going to want to stay tuned and see the finished product. But you see all of this thread? This is how I run my leaders and my enders. They can duplicate as either one. But this is something that I'm actually surprised not every quilter knows about. And especially beginning quilters don't know about. My teacher taught me about this years and years ago, so the reason she taught me about them was the machine I was learning to quilt on did not come with a single needle plate, first of all, so my fabric would jam up at the very beginning when I started to sew. And so I always had a kind of a wrinkly, I'm going to say kind of a wrinkly, I don't know if I can demonstrate this with my kinky, but it would kind of wrinkle right as I'd start to sew, kind of like that, right? So it would look like that. I'd take it out and I'd have a fold right at the beginning of my seam on my very first piece. And I don't know how many of you get frustrated, but I got frustrated and my teacher said, use leaders and enders. So this is what it is. It's just a piece of fabric that's going to sit right there under my needle. And that's where I'm going to start. There are several reasons that we use leaders and enders. Even if you have the single needle throat plate on, which eliminates that bunching up at the beginning of your piecing. And I have a checklist here so I can remember all of the things. The first thing is it prevents your thread from knotting on the bottom. Now, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of these machines, the first couple of stitches, sometimes they make kind of a goofy, loopy thing on the bottom. So why not let it do it on a piece a fabric that you don't care about. Okay, so that's one thing. It prevents your fabric from looping on the bottom when you first start. Another thing is they're going to save thread. Now right now, I'm going to have a cameraman show this big long thread right here. That is going to stay on my leader here and not go into my quilt. And eventually, as I keep chain piecing, I'm not going to have big long tails of thread like that at the beginning or at the end. That's just the beginning of rethreading the machine and getting it ready. It's been pulled through. So in fact, let me just show you right now. We're going to go ahead and cut, take that out. And my regular tail, see how much shorter that is? It's just that little piece of tail right there. And now that will be on my leader. And I'm going to go ahead and drop that down again. And put my needle down. Okay, down. All right, so probably one of the best things that I have found with the leaders and enders is that they maintain a consistent seam allowance. I don't have a wobbly beginning or ending on my seams because I'm not guessing how to get it under my presser foot. It's already ready. The presser foot's set at the same height of fabric, right? Because I've got 2 layers here on my leader. So it's ready to go. And I just need to start feeding my fabric in. I don't have to guess. I don't have to be wobbly. It helps me be more accurate. The other thing is when you're all done with your multi-piecing or your chain piecing, whatever you want to call it, you're going to clip your threads, but you're not going to have big threads to clip. I don't know about you. I don't like clipping threads. They're annoying. It's tedious. So I like this because then I have all of my pieces sewn in a chain and I just take my scissors and clip in between them. Super easy to do. Okay. Now, it also helps keep your needle thread from unthreading. That's really annoying when you go to start and your needle lifts up and it unthreads your needle because you didn't have enough thread tail. You can unthread your machine. If you use a leader and an ender, that's not going to happen anymore. No more unthreaded needles. For people / quilters who are super organized, which I am not yet, I'm working on that, that's a goal for this year, you can actually use leaders and enders, scrap pieces, and make a scrap piece at the same time, which makes leaders and enders a very efficient use of your sewing time. So you're making 2 quilts at the same time you're making 1. That's kind of like, I would love to be able to do that. I got to figure that out. I have to have everything cut, all my scraps cut and ready to go. I'm not there yet, but there are a lot of people out there who are. So that makes it great. In the meantime, this is my leader and ender. Is just a scrap. This was actually a scrap piece of binding from another project that I had left over. Just cut it into little pieces, and then I just sew and sew and sew. I've actually sewed on these until there's more thread than fabric. So you don't have to change them very often. All right, so let me demonstrate. When I teach this in my beginning piecing classes, this is a tricky concept to grasp. I don't know why. It just is. Now I have some components here of my quilt block. Remember last week we learned about how to make this unit. This is in my Chandelier 2 quilt sample that I'm making for the store. It's a Lella Batik pattern, so be watching for that in the next couple of weeks. I'll have that finished and ready to go. So that's the center unit of the quilt block. I have in fact, I'm just going to lay it out here. This is not the complete block. I have my 2 edge pieces that go here and here, and then I'm going to have my side pieces here that are going to go here, and this gray piece goes here, and this gray piece goes here, and this one goes here. So this is going to be kind of the components that I'm working on. I can chain piece quite a lot of this, and I'm going to do that and show you how I would use my leaders and enders. You don't have to put a scrap, a leader, or an ender in between every piece that you go. That seems to be a concept that beginning quilters think you have to do. Oh, no, no, no. That's just at the very beginning of when you start, and then when you get to the end of your chain piecing, then you're going to sew on an ender. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to set that piece aside, and I'm going to do this. Oh, something else I wanted to talk to you about. Let's see if you can see this. I don't know how you can see it. This is from a layer cake. So you see we have one edge right here that's got that peaked edge. So when you are sewing from a layer cake or a jelly roll or a charm pack, there's always one edge that has those little peaks. You always sew from the top of the peak, not the valley. That is how you measure your edge of your fabric. So this is going to go right sides together just like this. Okay, so you can see that right there. That will help you know that you're doing it the right way and getting that accurate seam allowance. Okay, that being said, we're going to go this way. Okay, so I have my leader here. I'm just going to sew. And again, I'm sewing with yellow thread so you can see what I'm doing. And this is always tricky with the camera in my face like that, but we'll sew a little bit at a time. I want to make sure I'm keeping my seam allowances, like this one right here is facing the wrong way, so I'm going to want to hold that with my finger and keep it going the right way when it gets to those feed dogs. Okay, now I'm almost to the end of this piece. I'm going to leave my needle down, move my hand out of the way. Now I'm going to pick up one of my longer pieces with the gray corner, and again this one has that peaked edge, so I'm going to put that gray so that it's right. You see that right there? Lines up, and now I'm going to sew. Now I have a question for you. It's a little off, so I'm just going to take my fingernail and make those fabrics behave. If you have an old machine that doesn't feed your fabric nicely, I always know those students because they have their hand back here and are pulling their fabric through. Maybe you need to consider a new machine. I'm just saying you should never have to help your machine pull the fabric through. Your machine should feed it, and in today's machines they are amazing with what they do. Okay, so I've sewed 1, 2, here's my third piece that I'm going to sew tonight. We're going to just zip that along. Now I'm coming to the end. I'm going to get my leader right here, and it's going to go right there, and I just realized I forgot my scissors. So I'm going to grab this seam ripper right here out of my goodie bag, and I'm just going to cut right there. Da, 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 da. So now you see I've left my ender, which is now my leader. It's here in my needle, right? And I have my 3 pieces of fabric plus my original leader hanging off the bottom, right? So I'm ready to just cut them apart, right? Now notice there's hardly any thread waste right there. Don't you love that? I do. I think that is awesome. 1, 2, and I'll cut that one off because this will go right here to be used again. And we are ready to keep sewing. I'm not going to bore you with it. I'm going to make you wait and see the finished product because it's such a gorgeous quilt. I'm so excited. But that is my tip today, to use a single needle throat plate if you have one. If you don't, call your store and ask if you can get one for your model of machine. We have them for the Viking and the Pfaff here at Quilted Works. And then you're going to also want to use a leader and an ender, all right? Either scraps of fabric, or you're going to be one of those super organized quilters who's going to sew 2 quilts the same time you sew 1 quilt. All right? I hope you have a good Friday, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.